Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And, well, I guess it's probably the middle of the night in Bangladesh now. But earlier today, a panel from Bangladesh's High Court ordered the Bangladeshi government to immediately, this was their word, in quotes, immediately seize all the property of the owner of the factory building that collapsed last week, killing hundreds and injuring thousands more. This is it's called the Rana Plaza. 8-story building collapsed Wednesday morning, trapping thousands of workers. There were 5 garment factories in this building. And so far, about 2,500 survivors have been accounted for. At least 350 people have died. The building's owner is also a local politician. His name is Mohammed Sohail Rana. He was arrested on Sunday. He's in jail. In fact, he was arrested near the border with India. He was on his way out of town. He's facing charges of negligence, illegal construction, and forcing workers to work in unsafe conditions. And if he's found guilty in all these counts, 7 years in prison. Which seems fairly light, but whatever. That's Bangladesh. The court also asked Bangladesh's central bank to freeze the assets of the owners of the 5 garment factories that were in that building and use that money to help pay for the salaries and other benefits of the workers who now have no jobs. Now just think about that for a minute. The guy who owned the building that collapsed, that was filled with safety violations, he's in jail. The companies that were participating with him, they've had their money frozen and taken, and it's going to their workers. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, another community is still coming to terms with another tragic and entirely preventable loss. The small town of West Texas. Remember this? 2 weeks ago, 14 people died, 200 others. I mean, it wiped out a town, a hospital, a school. This devastating fertilizer plant fire and explosion. And many of those who survived the explosion in West, they've lost their homes, they've lost everything. And yet here we are 12 days out. How many arrests? None. Even worse, because of functionally a media blackout, we don't know the name of the fertilizer plant's owner or manager. Who made the decisions that led to these deaths in Texas? Who lied to or failed to let the EPA and other agencies know that they were violating their rules? We have no idea. In Bangladesh, they arrested that thing went down. What was it, Wednesday? They arrested the guy. His initial hearing was today. Who's been arrested for the deaths in West Texas? Nobody. So how is it that Bangladesh, a third world nation, can seize the assets of those responsible for a tragic factory collapse and bring them to court in just 5 days? While here in the United States, we're still waiting for someone to be held accountable for the West disaster. How is that? Maybe it's because Bangladesh, despite overwhelming poverty, understands the fact that misbehaving corporations and people in power, keep in mind the guy who owned this building was also a local politician, must be held accountable for their actions. Negligence can't go overlooked. But here in the U.S., it's a whole different story. In the U.S., we basically have 2 different justice systems. There's one for corporate executives and rich people, and one for everyone else. Here in the U.S., we hold people like Aaron Schwartz and Bradley Manning accountable for their actions. But we let people like J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon and Goldman Sachs' Lloyd Blankfein, who have caused real damage to America, get off with barely a slap on the wrist. Just this week, J.P. Morgan avoided another court case that could have led to criminal charges by paying a small fine. Remember Aaron Schwartz? He was a political organizer, an internet activist who wanted Americans to have access to a free and open internet. as a result of downloading academic journals that he intended to make public, he faced decades in prison and ultimately took his own life, many say, for that reason. Meanwhile, J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, who has been alleged multiple times to have committed criminal actions, including criminally withholding information from bank regulators. His bank and virtually all the other big banks forged documents. We politely call it robo-signing. They lied to borrowers and even in some cases to their investors. You know, if a one-man shop, if you were to become an investment advisor, if a little guy did that, you'd be in jail for years for fraud. But Dimon, Blankfein, and the rest of their Wall Street fat cap, multi-millionaire, multi-hundred millionaire, multi-billionaire buddies are doing just fine today, continuing to rake in multi-million-dollar bonuses and golden parachute retirements. In fact, right now, while the hundreds of banksters responsible for the 2008 financial collapse are still sitting pretty on Wall Street, everyday Americans who care about the direction that their country is going are being arrested. Not just ignored, arrested. Hundreds of people showed up in Dallas last week to protest the George W. Bush presidential so-called library. 3 of them were arrested. That same day, 32 protesters were arrested that same day and sent to jail in Syracuse, New York, after protesting the Obama administration's drone program. Countless others have been arrested protesting everything from climate change to nuclear weapons to the failure to close Guantanamo Bay. A woman was arrested yesterday for filming one of these poultry processing, one of these factory farms from across the street. While authorities across the nation are wasting their efforts throwing peaceful protesters in jail, those who really should be sitting in the 5x9 cells, they got their private jets, they got their limousines, they got their in the lap of luxury. This is one of the biggest problems we face in America today. You know, Bernie Sanders on this program, he said a bunch of times, he says, America is becoming an oligarchy. With all respect to Bernie, that's an understatement. Misbehaving corporations and people in power are pretty much allowed to get away with just about anything these days. Thanks to court rulings like Citizens United and the corruptive influence of money in politics, our corporations and our corporate executives have become almost untouchable figures in society today, and that needs to change. It's insane that we let Wall Street banksters get away with crashing our economy and simultaneously get away with workers' rights abuses and safety violations that kill American citizens. And it's an incredible irony. I mean, just consider this. When the shining city on the hill, the example for the world, has become Bangladesh. But it's true. If Bangladesh can hold their corporate fat cats accountable for causing mayhem, death, and destruction, shouldn't we be able to? Call your elected officials and ask them to stop letting our fertilizer company owners and banksters and oil companies get away with murder. And tell your media outlets to start reporting on corporate crime as enthusiastically as they report on corporate profits. I mean, just consider. How many people died in Boston versus West Texas? Who are the real terrorists in this country in terms of body counts? Who are the real terrorists? How many people live in fear of going to work, in fear that they may die, or simply in fear that they might get sick and there's no way they can pay for getting well?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And the Republican solution to this? Oh, well, let's put some more air traffic controllers back to work so we don't miss our planes. But everybody else, screw them.